to the Call by God podcast with my daddy, Nicson Silvanie, Rotten Tonight, and Adney Godin.
This show is about dialogues of biblical characters and testimonies of Christians who submitted to the will of God. Each week, we'll bring on one guest so that they can share their story of how they were called by God. I hope this show inspires you. Enjoy. Hello, world. Welcome to another episode, the Call by God podcast. I'm your host, Nicson Silvanie, and my other host,
Rotten Tonight,
and my co-host,
Adney Godin.
Adney Godin. How y'all doing on this beautiful, beautiful day?
Well, I will allow Adney to go first as a lady on the show.
I'm doing good. I'm honestly doing good. I can't complain.
Yeah, I would, amplify the same thing. I think we had a phenomenal week and looking forward to the weekend. And once again, I'm excited to be on the show.
Amen. Well, I'm going to just go ahead and without further ado, I'm not just going to dive into the guests that we have here. I mean, I'm just excited. As you all know, the Call by God podcast has been blessing many listeners. I've had people reach out to me. So it's just amazing how, you could put a platform or a ministry out there and that's, many lives are being touched. And when I think about the Call by God podcast, I don't think it's only limited to a certain group of people. I think that God is calling us from even in our youth, on our young adult stages, and even we could be up there in age, elderly stages. We believe that God could reach you and could call you at any given time. And I think about the prophet Jeremiah, and there's a couple of scriptures that I want to touch on. Jeremiah said in Jeremiah 1:4, he was a prophet, a young prophet of our Lord. He said, the word of the Lord came to me. So he's saying that God came to him saying, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Then he says, alas, sovereign Lord, I said, I do not know how to speak. So here's Jeremiah talking to God about, his deficiencies. Look, Lord, I'm young. I don't know how to speak. And following, he said, I am too young. I am too young. But the Lord said to me, do not say, I am too young. You must go to everyone I send you to and say whatever I command you. So I think these few passages of scriptures is perfect for the guest that we're about to bring on, because this is a special episode. We're talking to not only my daughter, a godly young lady. She's highly educated and, a college student. She's doing her thing. She's working, godly woman, love the Lord. And she's a type of person where we refer to as a Generation Z. And for her to have that type of generation, that she was born in this type of generation, and to have the zest and the zeal for God, I mean, that is phenomenal. So we just thought that we would just bring her on here so she could share some tips and some pointers of how she was called by God. So without further ado, I now introduce you my wonderful daughter, Jordan. How you doing, Jordan?
I am doing well. Thank you for inviting me to your podcast. I am very excited and to see that this is a great opportunity for not only me, but the viewers and the listeners out there.
Oh man, it is phenomenal to have you here. We are excited. Sister Adney, Brother Rod could attest to that. We are so happy. So we're just going to go ahead and dive in. I'm going to just toss it on to Sister Adney, and we're just going to kind of like see, what God is doing with you. We want to know.
All right, go ahead.
Hey, Jordan. Okay, I call you my spiritual niece, so we're going to be having this a little conversation here.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
The first question I want to ask you, because, of course, before we were called, we had to start somewhere, right? I want to ask you about your relationship with your mom.
My relationship with my mother is close because I lived a fairly normal childhood. I had my mom with me and my grandparents. However, I didn't have my original father with me. So it was a very rough childhood on that department, and I consider that my broken home. But until my father, who I really consider my father, Nicson Silvanie, entered into me and my mother's life, he had more of a connection and more active than my original father is. So it was just a blessing to have him, that God was able to fix something that was broken.
So let's go ahead and go a little deeper on the relationship with your dad and Daddy-O, because I know you call Brother Nick Daddy-O, and your biological dad you call Dad. So let's go a little deeper on that. What is that like, and how has that shaped you and caused you to become the young woman that you are today?
Well, from my biological dad and my Daddy-O, I feel like with my original dad, he kind of, in a way, by him leaving my life, he shaped me because of who I am. Like, I don't resent people. I'm very understanding, and I become very open because I feel like if I'm closed off, if I just hate the world and just be bitter, that's just not who I am, and that would just only destroy myself and goes to show that he won. So, but with Daddy-O, he was like more open to me. He told me about the word. He let me express of who I am. And by his example and what he do, I follow what he does, like reading the Bible, having testimonies, praying, just him being himself. So I'm thinking, like, this is the real father I should have. And even if my original father came back in my life or not, it shouldn't matter, because in the end of the day, it's my decision and it's me who's going to shape myself and not the person who brought me into this world.
Oh, girl, that was so deep. That was so deep. I love that answer. I want to ask you, I want to go back to your relationship with your mom as well, because I know your mom was single before she met your Daddy-O. How was it? And I know you said grandparents, but I just want you to focus on that relationship with you and your mom.
Me and my mother have a very tight bond. She always help me when I fall. She always give me the best advice. We have our little ups and downs, but most of the time she would just always just be there for me, or she always put up an act, even when I was small, that she was a strong, independent woman. I know she had her times where she'd break down, and I kind of see those secret moments, and it makes me feel a lot for her and make me have a even more deeper connection, because I don't want her to feel alone or feel like this battle is just only for her. I know in the end of the day, God is with her and God is in a battle, but I guess what drew me close to her, it's just that what she's been going through, and just by how she never gave up on me, I never wanted to give up on her.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, Jordan, we want to thank you for your the level of transparency. I think that speaks volume. But I definitely want to elaborate on. I want you to elaborate on. So let's piggyback on. So you actually have a foundation early on in your life. Your mother was a woman of God. You mentioned you actually spoke about the examples that was introduced to you early in the childhood. You talked about your father being absentee, but then again, God replaced him with a man of God. And so it clearly shows that you had the demonstration, you had the foundation. But I want to emphasize on your choice. You said something very significantly impressing to me. You said, I still have to make a choice to choose who I want to be and how I want to decide to live my life. That is correct. Because we know now that God has a calling on your life, but can you reinsure me? Why did you decide that this is the path I want to go? Because we understand you have the foundation, you have the demonstration, you have the examples, but there's a lot of kids today in society that rebel. We have social media, you have the influence of friends, you have the parties, you have the alcohol, the drugs. There's so many things that can pull a young teenager out of their foundational home that is structured by God. What allows you to stay focused, Jordan?
Well, you make a good point, especially that by how the world is. You're very pressured to do a lot of things because of how society see things. And of course, you want to rebel to show people look, I'm not I may be a good person, but doesn't mean I have to stay as a good person. But even though deep down, it's still kind of wrong, and you don't want to hurt people, or in a way, you just want to please everybody around you. But sometimes you just can't, and that's the hard reality of it. But to answer your question, for me, I'll have my times, yes, where I like fall down and get back up with like following the world's example of what good is and just try to do whatever, the flesh want. Like, I want to do this or I want to experience that. Like everything that as a Christian you cannot do, but is considered fun to do. And that's what gets us. Like, what's fun is fun and nothing's going to hurt, but you never know what you're doing for fun may lead to destruction. It's like a domino effect. If you're ending up with this person, everything is all well and dandy, all is fine. But then if you see like a change and you don't do anything about it, it affects you in the future, because life is like a branch, and it's, in the end of the day, your decision to either follow the right path or the wrong path. Sometimes you're not even going to see what is right or wrong because it'll just come like that. However, if you just feel something in your spirit, or we all have that like second gut or like second mind of knowing what is wrong and what is right, it's best to follow that example.
And another question I have for you, Jordan, is how are you able to differentiate from Christian friends and non-Christian friends? We know that as a Christian, you're not always going to have Christian friends. Because when you go to school, majority of individuals that go to school don't have the Christian foundation at home. So how are you able to set apart from your Christian friends and non-Christian friends and still being accepting and loving and kind, despite if they're saved or not? How are you able to do so?
And how I answer it to all my viewers or other teens out there who's listening to it, it is hard to, of course, maintain your Christian life and, of course, the life you will want your friends to see you as. Because for me, for my example, I do have my friends in high school. They know I'm a Christian. Half of them are not, or at least one of them will be the atheist. So I try to keep that balance, but also tell people like, hey, I don't mind doing all of this. However, I have a limit, or I have boundaries of not doing this type of thing. And if they're your friend, or you're comfortable in that position, is like when they don't force you, they don't push you, they don't question you like, why are you doing all of this? Or you sure you can't just do that? It would just be one time. It would be one thing. If they keep on pressuring you or just do it, don't think of it as they're caring for you or just as it's just a small little thing. No, if you don't feel comfortable doing it, don't do it at all, because that could save your life. You never know. But as for like Christian friends, of course, I have Christian friends at the church. We all talk, hang out, but it feels like you have more, or for me, I have a more connection to my non-Christian friends, not in the bad way of some sort, but it feels like you could be more of yourself in a way, but you just have to be careful not to be too much of yourself, like cursing or doing things you're not really supposed to do, or like sneaking off of curfews, being rebel. Of course, we're going to have our times of doing that, wanting to be slick, like, ooh, I got away with this, what's next? But at the same time, you just have to kind of like dial it down a little bit, or just know where you're at in the end of the day. Like, you're a Christian. They know that you're staying faithful and that you are rooted to the ground, that nobody can shake you, leave you, or just mess with you, because they know God is with you. And if they don't know that, you just kind of show them or prove it to them.
Yeah, let me add on to that. Man, you said a mouthful. Wow. Like, I like the word that you use, boundaries. I like that word. I mean, that when you said that, I was like, wow. And not only that, the word boundary, I like the fact that you could be with people that are not Christians. It's everybody has a purpose, right? So we are called to be the light of the world. So when I look at you being in the midst of people that's not saved, I look at you being the light in that circle, right? So what sometimes some saints, what they were always taught to do is to always be around the Christians, but that's not so. That's not true. So God needs a light in a dark place. So God, that's why you're so unique. God has put you, and God has led you to be that example to your generation, to be that light in a dark place. Because there's many people that have different beliefs belief systems. There's many people that's coming up from broken homes. Yeah, you were fortunate and blessed to have a mother and a father living in the same household to build that foundation, but there's others that don't have that. And for you to be in the midst of ungodly people and to use the word boundaries, like, because either you're going to do two things. It's either they're going to convert you or you're going to convert them. So that's why I like the fact that you use that word and that we don't judge you in the sense that, hey, why you chilling with these type of people? So what I wanted to ask you, when did you of course, before I go to my question, we know that people have certain titles. You got the preachers, you got the teachers, you got the evangelists, right? So when did you feel that tug or that call or what God was calling you to do? When did you feel that, wow, God, this is what you calling me to do to draw people closer to you? And I want you to explain to your listeners, what was that call like?
The call, it's, how can I really explain it? It's like something you can't explain, and that's like the best kind of testimony or the best word to say. Like when God puts something in your spirit, it's hard for you to explain it. But for the question you're asking me, it's a blessing and a curse, because you have those people or you have those friend groups, like you say, you're the light of some of their darkness, come to you asking you for advice, and you thinking to yourself, oh wow, God, did you really put me here to help this person out, or just to tell them like they're not alone, that it's okay, that God is with them, you're with them, you're not alone in the battle, even though you feel like you are, like you're in this deep, darkness. Like I always say, like if you step out at nighttime, there's always a shine of light, there's always a star, there's always any type of light that you could reach out to. It's just you at the end of the day for you to reach it or not. But like I say, it's also a curse, because then you feel pressured of wanting to say the right words to the person, and you feel like, oh gosh, if I don't say this right, they're going to think of it as like totally complete opposite, or they're just going to like start saying, well, that doesn't make sense, or why is it happening to me? Why can't it happen to anybody else? It's like these questions you cannot answer on your own, but have to keep on meditating and praying to God for you to use the right words for that soul or for that person.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Thank you for making it midway through this episode. We want to take a moment to sincerely thank each and every one of you who have been supporting our show. Your encouragement and positive feedback mean the world to us. We want to continue to bring you inspiring and thought-provoking content each week, and that's where we need your help. We kindly ask you to support our podcast by clicking on the link provided in the description below. Your support will enable us to grow, reach a wider audience, and continue to produce the quality content you enjoy. We truly appreciate your support and value your contribution to the Call by God podcast. Together, let's inspire and uplift others in their faith journey. Thank you once again for your continued support, and we look forward to bringing you more enlightening episodes in the future. God bless.
If I didn't know any better, I would think that Jordan is a preacher kid.
Oh, Jordan, girl.
You would think.
I don't think so.
Mercy.
You would think that Jordan is actually a PK. And any observation, Jordan, do people actually at the school think that you are like a preacher's kid because of your demeanor, the way you carry yourself, the way you talk? Because, there is a slight difference from speaking Ebonics and speaking it with slight of sense of cautiousness. Because you probably speak Ebonics at school with different slang, but you're cautious. You're a little bit conscious of what to say and what not to say.
Yep, and I very much am. In my friend group, because in high school, I had like 10 friends. And then, of course, after high school, you know who those true friends are when they still stick with you. So now I have like 3 or 4 friends. And my label for them is that nice, optimistic, and caring person. And, of course, sometimes I feel like, man, I could be more than that, or in this other type of way, because like you said, everybody have their own labels and have their own identity in a way. Like you got the funny one, you got the foolish one, you got the one that like to party a lot. However, with me, they do see me as like the not the preacher's kid, but of course the church girl that won't do much wrong, or just have, like what Daddy said, with my boundaries, or just knowing when to say yes or no. So they know not to really force me. Yeah, they'll become a little bit irritated, but at the same time they accept who I am, and that's the definition or how friends should be. Like, no matter where you come from, and of course the religion that you have, as long as they stick with you and just be with you, to just except for who you are and what your beliefs in.
Again, we already know your purpose and what it means to be around your friends. We know that God is calling you to call them to get to know Jesus. And I think the closer, people are not going to come to the church building. We are a walking church, and we evangelize in that way. So what I wanted to ask you, and I know, the question's coming from your dad, but what I wanted to ask you is, like, we have our own faith and we know God personally. When I say we, I mean me and your mom. She knows God on a personal level. So I want to know, what were some of the experiences that that God was actually with you and walking with you? And how did you find that, like, wow, I'm starting to experience God for myself? I want you to share some examples, because, again, it's so much. You could take a child to a worship building, have Bible studies with them, read the black and white all day. We could pray. But what was the assurance or the confirmation? Like, we talk about Samuel. So Samuel was in the temple. God was calling him, Samuel. And then Samuel went to the priest. Eli, you guys are? Nope. So God called Samuel about 3-4 times. So what was your confirmation? Like, wow, what I'm reading is actually true. God is definitely with me. I want you to share, you can either share one experience or maybe a couple of experiences that that God was actually with you.
Okay. To answer your question, with my mother, and of course her being a strong spiritual woman, I see like how God blessed her and provide for her and for myself. And I was thinking to myself, man, it must be like really good what she's doing, or man, being a Christian means you have all these good stuff. But that's not how it is. Usually when you say yes to God or step into Christ, that's where like all hell broke loose, or just when really bad things start to happen. But not just because you want to become a Christian, but it's because God want to see where your faith is at, really. Because we can all say, like, you'll know those type of Christians where they got those Christians say, oh yeah, I'm a Christian, God has blessed me with a house and a family and with 2 dogs. I could go on with my life. But it's usually the ones who are silent are the ones that God have blessed the most. Because when a storm comes in, or if anything were to happen, those people that's saying like they're Christian and all, they're very quick to break down and say, oh, why is God doing this to me? This shouldn't be happening. Or I'm praising him, I'm giving everything to him like this. But as real Christians, we think to ourselves like, Lord, you let this happen for a reason. And I pray that you humble me for this experience, and that you let me learn from this lesson. Every lesson we go through always have like a meaning behind it. So then for me, I can't really remember when I was little, but this recent thing, it goes to show God was with me, is when I got fired from my old job at Petland. I was very, very devastated, because I'm thinking like, God, I love this job. I have a passion for animals. Why would you take this away from me? And there have been 7 months where I had my emotional swings. Like, I was happy, like, oh, I don't have a job, I could just sit back, relax. I was mad at God, like, why did you let this happen? I was scared that I would never be able to even find a job. Like, all these emotions like bubbled up, until one day I got a phone call at a pet hospital, and they offered me the job, and I was really excited to take it. However, I told them, because I wanted to put God first, like, I cannot work on Sundays, it's against my religion. I could do anything you want me to, holidays, over hours, just anything but to work on Sundays. They were a little bit skeptical of that. So they didn't contact me for a few weeks. Then another hospital called me and they did the same thing. And I answered them the same response. And they were skeptical. So after that interview, I really started to break down saying like, God, I'm putting you first. Why won't you just bless me with this? Like, what am I not doing? Because I'm still being optimistic. I'm still having faith. Like, what is the problem? And I kid you guys not, and I'm being honest to my heart, 2 hours later, the first animal hospital called me and said, we are very happy to consider you as our animal family and will want you to work with me. After they said that and I hung up the phone, I was in tears, but not as me being sad, but like joyful tears, because it goes to show me that me denying what the world wants me to do is work on Sundays, I was able to overcome it and put God first, and I was able to get a job I never thought I would get, and that is way better from the old one. So that alone goes to show that God doesn't work in our timing, but he always is on time because he's working in his own timing. So that's how I know, even from now, God is with me.
Wow.
See, I honestly know now why we've been having our little, because this girl right here, oh my gosh, Jordan, thank you for your transparency. Okay, so I'm going to go a little deep with you because I know you just experienced a loss, and it was a great loss, and that was the loss of your grandmother. Has that detoured your relationship with God? Has that affected how you reach out to God and search for God and want him to, just reveal everything that he desires from you? Because, sometimes we could get into that place of, that's my grandma and da-da-da-da-da. And you're like, okay, no, God, what is it? What do you want from me? Because I know for you to take her, there had to be a reason. So I want you to share with us, how was that journey for you?
I'm glad you asked that, Sister Annie, because when I did lose my grandmother, that was a very, very hard day because I loved her with all my heart. And of course, it was a great loss for, of course, my mother, because that's her mother. So it was hard on both of us. And of course, everybody grieve in their own different ways. Some people will go drink, some people would just be very talkative, some people be quiet. Just with my grieving, I bottle things up, and I'll say that that's not healthy, and it's okay to cry, it's okay to weep and to mourn, because it doesn't show that you're weak, but it shows that you've been strong for too long. So it's like I did have that thought, like, God, why in the world would you take her away just like that? Why can't she stay like another year or just experience this great year with us? But with this pandemic, with the corona, and I'm seeing all these people like die alone, me and my mother had a heart-to-heart like talk about it and say, like, you know what God did was a good time. Because if she would have died around this pandemic, it would have been even harder than it is now. Because then we wouldn't be with her, we wouldn't like be in a hospital, tell her that we love her. But those people or families that couldn't, it makes you have like a different perspective, and you're like, wow, God, I see what you're doing. It's not when it happens you'll see, but like in the future, or where you finally get to understand, when your mind finally clears and God shows you, because he doesn't give you it on the table, doesn't show you the whole plan. It's all step by step, vision by vision, and that's when you actually see, like, wow, God, this is what you were preventing, or you did give us that time to actually enjoy her and have our final goodbye, sit next to her, tell her that we love her, and her to repent. So it was hard. It was very, very hard. But with what's going on today, and I thank God that the pandemic is slowly decreasing, and that people and families are finally to see their family members, is just, just mind-opening, eye-opening of what's going on now.
Yeah, so I'm touched, but I want to ask you a question. Since the demise of your grandmother, and we know that we all got to go. We know that this is not our home. And that's why we do what we do, because Jesus Christ came and he died, he was buried, and he was risen. He was risen on the third day just so we could have life. For those that believe in him, repent, confess, baptize, and they receive the gift of the Holy Spirit. So we know that this is not our home. So what I wanted to ask you is that now that we know that your mother has been, grandmother has been gone, when you look at people that are still alive, does it kind of like push you to do more, to minister to them or talk to them about Jesus Christ so they could have life everlasting? Like, do it kind of like pushes you or motivate you to find some kind of creative way with God's power, to reach out to those that are lost? And I want you to explain on that, because, again, we know that young adults, Generation Z, they already count you guys out. So these are the stories that people do not hear. Some of the things that you're sharing, for you to be a young adult, you're in college, you're working, but yet you're a young lady, you're a woman of God. You're still worshiping God. You're doing things that pleases God. So what are some of the things that you are doing to ensure that people are following the right path? It could be the littlest things, but that littlest thing is a glory to God. Some people think you have to do something impactful, but we plant, we water, but it is God. It is God himself who does the increase. So what are some of the things that you are doing to ensure that God get the glory and to ensure that people are on the right path?
Well, what I do is, of course, I just pray for knowing that whatever I do, I don't really care for impact of the world, but mostly for the people who are your world, and that they will be saved. And my favorite book was The Revelation of Heaven and Hell, because that's even an eye-opening book that make you think about when the time comes, because everybody have their own time limit. It's scary to think, yes, but at the same time, it motivates me, and of course, it will motivate others to live their life, but not only for themselves, but for God, and to tell their testimonies. So for what I would do is it's hard to open up talking about Christianity, because then you got that weird look from people, or they'll try to shift the conversation, or even you feel like, even though when you're comfortable with Christians and other people, when you want to talk to your friends about it, you feel uncomfortable. And that's the worst feeling, because you want to help the people, you want to reach out to the ones that you care about the most. So for me, I'll put like little C's, like don't give up, or still have faith, or just, don't think that you're alone, or if you need me, I'll be here, just call me. Like, I try to be like the nurturer of the group. Like, I know I won't be the best out of it, but I'll just still try my best, and God could do the rest behind the scene. So that's what I would do. And I advise like other people or other generation X, Y, Z, whoever's listening out there, just at least try, because that's what God looks at. God doesn't look at he does look at our hard works, but at the same time, if we show God that we're trying, that's the best example we could do.
Absolutely. This show has been a tremendous, transparency, a level of transparency, and wearing your emotions on the sleeve, letting the world know this is how I feel and this is what I've experienced, and essentially I want to just digest on what you said about God revealing Himself to you, because you posed a question, God, why now? Why did my grandma leave now? And God revealed to you because there is a famine coming on the land. There is going to be a sickness that's not going to allow you to have personal time with her, a chance to say goodbye with her, to sit with her, hold her hands. So that is, folks, world, this is a true dramatic experience, but she sees it in a godly revelation way. So this is what we're talking about when you say called by God. This is a young teenager who has the insight and have a relationship and intimacy with God, because she fully has not only the revelation, but the understanding that this is why God was able to transition my grandmother in this season. For most of us on a podcast today that is listening to Called by God, we want to ensure you that God makes no mistakes, folks. God is always on time. You're hearing it from a mouth of a teenager who walked in those shoes and who had an experience where God was revealing to her This is why I do what I do, and remind you, I'm doing it in your best interest. So we want to thank you, Jordan. We want to thank you for your heartfelt, your compassion. We want to thank you for your level of transparency. We want to thank you once again for opening up, speaking highly of your Creator, your God, which is our God as well, who's always working in our interest, who's always doing the best that he can to make sure that we're comfortable, and most importantly, that he's glorified. So, nevertheless, I have nothing else to say, because you have not only shocked the world, you shocked me as well as a listener today on Called by God podcast.
Yes, I'm her daddy, and I took a back seat. I was like, wow, this is powerful. So again, Rod, you said it best, but, I'd never let anybody leave the show without me asking them one question. So I got one more last question. And it's been so good. I think she's going to give her honest opinion about this. And it's been a powerful episode. Yeah. So, Jordan, one question that I wanted to pose and ask you. So what's one advice you'll give to a young adult of answering the call that God has in their lives?
Well, for my final answer, and I thank you all for inviting me. I had a wonderful time expressing myself and telling nothing but the truth from my heart. But for my last conclusion is just to not give up, because that's the worst thing you can ever do. Just know it is, even when you feel like it's too late, it's never too late with God by your side. Just be humble, be thankful, and just still, of course, when things are not looking bright, just know that there's a bright side somewhere. And that if you feel like the time is not now, always know that God's timing is never wrong and is never, ever late. And I thank you again. And I hope your podcast goes well and it blossoms.
Thank you so much, Jordan, for those kind words. It was a blessing for us to have you on the Call by God podcast. I'm really looking forward to see what God is about to do with you in the coming future. And also to conclude this show, to all of our listeners, our supporters, we ask that you continue to listen, subscribe, and please share our podcast. And also, in addition to that, we do plan on expanding and doing more with this ministry. So we just ask that you simply go on to the show notes and just click on the link and please support the show. You can support us whatever means of income that you have. It could be $1. We'll be satisfied with that. So just please support us in whatever we're trying to do. We're trying to bring more content onto our listeners. May God bless you, and remember, Jesus Christ is King. Wait, there's more. What if today was your last day on earth? Would you be ready to meet your Maker? Well, Jesus Christ has given us the good news. He told his disciples in Mark 16:15-16, and he said to them, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. He who believes and is baptized will be saved, but he who does not believe will be condemned." Jesus Christ has instructed his children to share and preach the gospel, which is the good news, which means that Jesus Christ came and that he was sacrificed, he was buried, and he rose on the third day. By believing and by repenting and confessing and being baptized, you will be saved. So it is your choice. Jesus Christ will not force you. You've heard the message, you heard personal testimonies, but this is your opportunity to give your life to Christ. Don't wait until tomorrow, because tomorrow is not promised. So I hope you submit to the will of God and give your soul to Christ. Be blessed.